Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Story and Podcast House. Today I will tell you a very special and miraculous story called 300 Years Sleep in a Cave. You won't believe this story. It is a simple English story that teaches faith, patience, courage, and trust in Allah. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this amazing story with me. Part 1. The City of Idols. A long time ago, in a great ancient land, there was a powerful king. He ruled over a big city filled with tall buildings, busy markets, and beautiful gardens. People there were rich and their lives looked happy. But deep inside, the city was full of darkness. Not darkness of night, but darkness of faith. The people had forgotten Allah, the one who created them. They made many idols with their own hands, from stone, wood, and gold, and they bowed down before them. The sound of prayers once used to rise to Allah, but now the city echoed with the noise of idol festivals, drums, and songs. People offered food to their idols, thinking they could bring rain, success, or children. But those idols were silent. They could not speak, hear, or help. The king himself was proud and cruel. He wore a golden crown and believed he was like a god. He told his people, "Worship me and the idols I choose for you. Whoever refuses will be punished." The soldiers of the king walked through the streets. Anyone who prayed to Allah alone was taken away. Some people were afraid and obeyed the king. But a few, very few, kept their faith strong in their hearts. Among them were a group of young men. They were noble, kind, and wise. Their hearts were filled with belief in Allah. Each day they looked at the city and felt sad. They saw people bowing to stones instead of praying to the Creator of the skies and the earth. One evening, when the sky turned red and the sun began to hide behind the hills, the young men gathered quietly outside the city walls. They did not want the king's guards to see them. The oldest of them, whose name was Yamlicha, said softly, "Brothers, this city is lost in darkness. They have forgotten the truth. The king wants us to worship idols, but we will never do that." Another young man nodded and said, "Yes, our hearts cannot accept false gods. We believe in one Allah, the Lord of everything." They all agreed and lifted their hands in dua, whispering, "O Allah, guide us and protect us from these cruel people." From that day, they stopped joining idol festivals. They prayed secretly in their homes or in quiet places outside the city. They spoke to others about Allah, but most people laughed at them. One man shouted, "You are foolish! The king is our God. He gives us food and safety." The young men answered calmly, "Only Allah gives life and death, food and safety. The king is just a man." The people became angry. Rumors spread through the city. There are some young men who do not obey the king. Soon the king's soldiers began to search for them. The young men knew that danger was coming. If they stayed, they would be caught and forced to bow before idols. So they made a brave decision. One night, under the light of the moon, they met secretly again. The wind was cool and the stars shone above them. They spoke quietly, their hearts full of fear and faith at the same time. "Brothers," said Yamlicha, "we must leave this city. Allah will protect us. There must be a place where we can worship Him freely." They packed only a little food and water. They wore simple clothes, and one of them brought along a faithful dog who always followed them. Then, before dawn, they began their journey, walking away from the city of idols, leaving behind their families, homes, and comfort for the sake of Allah. As they walked through the hills, they looked back one last time. The city lights were shining far away like tiny stars. One of them whispered, "May Allah forgive them and guide them to the truth." And so, their long and blessed journey began. The journey that would make them known forever as Ashab-e-Kahf, the people of the cave. Part 2. The Brave Believers. The young men walked all night. The wind was cold and the ground was rough, but their hearts were full of peace. They knew that Allah was watching over them. As the sun began to rise, the golden light spread over the hills. The young men stopped near a spring to rest. They drank a little water and shared some dry bread. One of them looked at the others and said softly, "We have left everything behind, our homes, our families, our comfort. But we still have Allah." The others nodded and smiled. Their faces were tired, but their eyes were bright with faith. As they continued their journey, they crossed through quiet valleys and stony paths. Sometimes they hid behind rocks when they saw travelers, afraid that the king's men might be searching for them. Each time fear touched their hearts, they remembered Allah's words, "Whoever puts his trust in Allah, He will make a way for him." When they reached the mountains, they saw a dark opening between the rocks. It was a cave, quiet and deep. The air inside was cool, and the sunlight fell softly at the entrance. Yamlika said, "Brothers, look! This place can protect us. No one will find us here. Let us stay and pray to Allah." They entered the cave and looked around. It was simple, only stones and sand, but their hearts felt safe. They sat together and raised their hands in dua. "Our Lord, give us mercy from yourself and guide us in the right way." Their hearts became calm. They talked about Allah's greatness, how He made the sky without pillars, how He gives rain and life to the earth, how He sees everything. One of them said, "The people of our city forgot all this. They bow to things they made themselves. But Allah made us." They prayed and remembered Him until their eyes became heavy with sleep. The cave became silent except for the sound of the wind. Outside, the sun was shining, but inside, a great miracle was about to happen. Allah, in His mercy, made them fall into a deep sleep, a sleep that would last for hundreds of years. Their dog lay at the entrance of the cave, its paws stretched forward, guarding them as if it too was blessed by Allah's protection. The sun moved in a special way. In the morning, its rays passed to the right of the cave, and in the evening, to the left. So the sunlight never hurt them, and the air inside stayed fresh. Allah turned their bodies gently from side to side so that they would not become stiff. They looked like people who were simply resting, peaceful and calm. Outside, time passed. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. The city they had left changed completely. New kings came, old buildings fell, and new people lived there. But inside the cave, the young believers slept peacefully, their bodies protected, their souls in peace, until the time Allah had chosen for them to wake again. Part 3. The Long Sleep and the Miracle. Awakening years passed, and the young men continued to sleep peacefully in the cave. The dog stayed at the entrance, faithful and alert, guarding them. Outside, the world changed completely. The city they had left was no longer the same. New people lived there, and most of them had forgotten the old idols. The old king had passed away, and new rulers ruled with justice. One morning, Allah sent a miracle. The young men slowly began to wake up. They opened their eyes and looked around the cave. Everything looked the same inside, but outside, the world had changed. The sun shone differently, the trees were taller, and the city far away looked new. One of them whispered, "How long have we slept?" Another looked at the sky and said, "I do not know. Maybe one day, maybe part of a day." They were surprised and confused. Their stomachs were empty, so one of them said, "We must go to the city to buy some food." Carefully, they walked down the mountain paths. When they reached the city, they were shocked. The buildings were new, the streets were clean, and people were dressed differently. One of the young men entered a shop to buy bread. He tried to pay with old coins he had brought from the past. The shopkeeper looked at the coins with surprise. "These are very old. Where did you get them?" The people noticed these young men and whispered to each other, "Look, they are different." "Who are they?" The young men realized Allah had performed a great miracle. He had protected them and shown the world his power. They returned to the cave, amazed at Allah's mercy. Their hearts were full of gratitude. They remembered their prayers, their trust in Allah, and how He had saved them from danger. The cave, once quiet, now became famous. People came from far and wide to see the cave of the young believers. They were amazed at the story and praised Allah. Even though centuries had passed, the young men's faith never changed. They reminded the world that true belief in Allah is stronger than time, fear, or danger. Part 4. Their return to the cave and the city's reaction after seeing the city and understanding Allah's miracle. The young men returned to their cave. Their hearts were full of gratitude and peace. The dog followed them, wagging its tail, still loyal after all the years. When people in the city heard about these young men, they were amazed. The elders said, "These are the people who disappeared many years ago. They slept in the cave and returned as a sign from Allah." The young men told the people their story in simple words. They spoke about Allah's mercy, His power, and the importance of faith. The city listened quietly. Many people cried because they realized how Allah had protected His believers. The young men explained how they had trusted Allah and left everything behind for His sake. They spoke about their long sleep, the dog guarding the cave, and the miracle of time passing. The people understood that idols and false gods cannot protect anyone. Only Allah is the true protector, the living, the one who never sleeps. The young men explained how they had trusted Allah and left everything behind for His sake. They spoke about their long sleep, the dog guarding the cave, and the miracle of time passing. The people understood that idols and false gods cannot protect anyone. Only Allah is the true protector, the living, the one who never sleeps. The young men returned to the cave and lived there for the rest of their lives in peace and worship. They prayed every day, thanking Allah for saving them and showing the world His power. The cave became a holy place. People visited it to remember the miracle and to be reminded of patience, trust, and faith. Even though the city had changed, the story of the young men remained alive. Their courage, honesty, and belief in Allah became a guide for generations. And the dog? It stayed at the cave entrance, resting peacefully, a silent witness to Allah's mercy. The city learned a great lesson. No matter how strong a king or how powerful people may seem, Allah protects His believers. Faith is stronger than fear, courage is stronger than danger, and trust in Allah never fails. Part 5. The people of the cave and their last days. After many years, the young men continued to live in the cave. They were peaceful, happy, and always thankful to Allah. They prayed every day, remembering how Allah had protected them from the cruel king, from danger, and from time itself. Their hearts were calm and their minds were full of wisdom. Sometimes they looked at the city from far away. They saw children playing in the streets, men and women working, and families living peacefully. The city had changed completely, and most people now believed in Allah. The young men realized that their story was not just for them. It was a lesson for everyone, for all generations to see. They gathered together one evening under the soft light of the moon and spoke quietly. "Brothers, our time is short. Allah has given us long life, but every soul must return to Him." They held hands, prayed together, and thanked Allah for His mercy. One by one, they passed away peacefully in the cave. Their bodies were protected by Allah even in death. The dog, still loyal, lay beside them until the end. When the people of the city heard about the cave and the miracle, they came to see it. They prayed there, remembering the young men who had trusted Allah completely. They left the cave with hearts full of faith, knowing that Allah's power is greater than anything. The story of Ashab-e-Kahf became a symbol of faith and trust in Allah, patience in difficult times, courage to stand for the truth, the reward of steadfast belief. Even today, the story is told around the world to inspire people to stay faithful, be patient, and trust Allah completely. Thank you for listening to this miraculous story of Ashab-e-Kahf. If you liked it, please subscribe to Story and Podcast House for more easy English stories that touch your heart and teach important lessons. Remember, true faith, patience, and trust in Allah can perform real miracles in life.